Today, we're jumping into a huge legal fight over presidential power, the economy, and who really gets to call the shots on trade in America. It's a story that involves a powerful court, a massive policy, and yeah, a whole lot of money. Okay, so let's get right into it. A major federal court just dropped a bombshell, basically saying the president's key trade policy might be unconstitutional. And the reasoning is super direct. The Constitution says Congress, and only Congress, has the power to create new taxes. You got it. This ruling is now teeing up a massive case for the Supreme Court. And that means this isn't just about economics anymore. Nope, this is about the fundamental rule book for our government. So to really get what's at stake, we've got to go back and see how we even got to this point. All right, first up, let's talk about the big event itself, the court decision that kicked this whole thing into high gear. So, a super important federal appeals court, the one that handles all this trade stuff, ruled 7-4 that the president had overstepped. Now, it wasn't a unanimous decision, but still, that's a pretty clear majority saying no and striking down a huge set of taxes on imported goods. The whole case really hinges on this one law from 1977 called EPA. The president used it to justify the tariffs, claiming there was a national emergency. But the court basically said, whoa, not so fast. They agreed EPA gives the president emergency powers, but they argued it never gave him a blank check to just invent brand new taxes out of thin air. Okay, so what exactly are these tariffs that the court decided to strike down? Let's take a closer look at what this policy actually was. First, a super quick refresher. A tariff is just a tax on stuff coming in from other countries. The goal is usually to make those imported products more expensive, hopefully encouraging people to buy stuff made right here at home. Now, the policy we're talking about, known as reciprocal tariffs, was no small thing. It was massive. The administration rolled it out in April, and it slapped a new 10% tax on pretty much everything coming into the U.S. from almost every country we do business with. And just to be clear, these tariffs weren't some minor adjustment. They were a cornerstone of the administration's whole economic strategy. I mean, look at this. Projections show them making up a staggering 70% of all tariff money by 2026. Taking that away would blow a giant hole in the budget. And this brings us to the real main events. This isn't just about trade, it's a classic Washington power struggle over the rules of the Constitution and the balance of power. The entire legal fight really boils down to this head-to-head conflict. On one side, you have the administration arguing that the IEPA law is meant to be broad and flexible, giving the president power in an emergency. But the court fired back with a core principle. The Constitution gives the power of the purse, the power to tax, to Congress. And they said that unless a law specifically says, hey, president, you can have this power, it stays with Congress, period. But remember, it was a 7-4 vote. That means not everyone on the court agreed. The 4 judges who dissented had a completely different interpretation. They argued that, hey, when Congress wrote that IEPA law, they knew exactly what they were doing. They meant to give the president sweeping powers to handle emergencies just like this. This case didn't just show up out of the blue. It started when a mix of states and small businesses, including a wine importer actually, sued the government, arguing these tariffs were illegal. First, a lower court sided with them. The administration appealed, but now this higher appeals court has sided with them too. So far, it's been a consistent legal trend against the policy. But here's where the plot thickens. This court ruling isn't the final word on all tariffs. Turns out, the administration had a plan B. Yeah, this decision only applies to those reciprocal tariffs we've been focused on. But there's another whole set of tariffs that are still active, and they were put in place for a totally different reason. They're called national security tariffs, and they use a completely separate law, a much older one from 1962. This law lets the president tax imports if they are seen as a threat to the country's safety. And because it's based on a different legal foundation, this recent court ruling doesn't touch them at all. And these national security tariffs impact some of the most essential parts of our economy. I mean, think about it. You've got the basics like steel and copper, for building everything. You've got the cars and trucks we all depend on. And you even have high-tech stuff like semiconductors that power, well, everything. These tariffs affect the very building blocks of our world, and they're still very much in play. So all of this, every ruling, every legal argument, it's all heading in one direction, a major showdown at the Supreme Court. And this case is such a big deal because tariffs have very real consequences. On one side, American companies making things like steel might get a boost because their foreign competitors are now more expensive. But on the other side, companies that need that steel, like car manufacturers, suddenly have higher costs. And guess who those costs can get passed on to? Us, the consumers. President Trump himself has really cranked up the pressure, painting this as an all-or-nothing moment for the economy. He's warned of terrible fallout and even hinted he might have to tear up other trade deals if the Supreme Court rules against him, arguing it could lead to financial ruin. So that's where we are. The Supreme Court's decision isn't just going to be about the price of steel or cars. It's a case that will help draw the line between the power of the president and the power of Congress for generations to come. It's about the limits of power in our modern world. And the final verdict? Well, that's still to be written.